Array of soups, and that was amazing. We were sitting there talking and critiquing the soups tonight at our table, and there was like, oh yeah, this is a good one, and that's a good one. Oh, this is a winner. Oh, that's good. And then I said, has there ever been a bad soup? I don't think so. You are a good soup-making congregation, a wonderful time. So thank you for that, and thank you for being here tonight and joining in on our Lenten journey as we progress through our time of Lent. So as we gather together tonight for this service of evening prayer, we look at, again, some things that Jesus said and did, and some of those around him. So tonight as we begin, please stand. Jesus Christ, you are the light of the world. The light no darkness can overcome. Stay with us now, for it is evening, and the day is almost over. Let your light Scatter the darkness and shine within your people here. Joyous night of heavenly glory, loving glow of God's own grace. You who sing creation's story, shine on every land and race. Now as evening falls around us, we shall raise our songs to you. God of daybreak, God of shadows, come and light our hearts anew. In the stars that grace the darkness, in the blazing sun of dawn, of the light of peace and wisdom, we can hear your quiet song. Love that fills the night with wonder, love that warms the weary soul, love that us whole. You who made the heaven's splendor, every dancing star of night, make us shine with gentle justice. Let us each reflect your light. Mighty God of all creation, gentle Christ who lights our way. Loving Spirit of salvation, lead us on to endless day. May God be with you all. Let us sing our thanks to God. Blessed are you, Creator of the universe. From all your earth people, by night and day. May the light of your Christ make our darkness bright. For your word and your presence are your light, our place, and you are the light and light of all creation. You may be seated for the song. Group will sing the first part together, and group 1 will be over here, group 2 will be May our prayers come before you, O God, as incense, and may your presence surround and fill us, so that in union with all creation, we might sing your praise and your love in our lives. Amen. Jesus had been taken before the council, been condemned, and deserving of death. While Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the serving girls of the high priest came by, and she saw Peter warming himself. She stared at him. She said, "You also were with that Jesus, the man from Nazareth." But he denied it, saying, I don't know who you're talking about or understand what you're saying. He went out into the forecourt, and then the cock crowed. The servant girl, on seeing him, began again to say to bystanders, "This man is one of them." But he denied it again. And after a little while, the bystanders again said to Peter, "Certainly you're one of them, for you are a Galilean." He began to curse and swore an oath. "I do not know this man you're talking about." And at that moment, the cock crowed for the second time. And Peter remembered that Jesus had said to him, "Before the cock crows twice, you will deny me 3 times." And he broke down and wept. Peter denies Jesus, denies even knowing him or anything about him. And Peter had been the one that Jesus said, "You're the rock. You're the rock on which I'll build my church." And he denied him. We hear that story. We hear it especially every year on Good Friday. We hear about the betrayal and the denial of Christ, especially by the one who was perhaps closest to him. And I got to thinking about how smug I often feel when I read that. I don't think I would have done that. Oh, I might have kept my mouth shut, but I don't think I would have done that. I don't think I would have denied Christ. Would I? Really? Very often in the story of Holy Week, we get that smug sort of feeling. I don't think I would have condemned him. If I had been one of the officials, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have nailed him up to the cross. I wouldn't have stood by. I would certainly not have been yelling in the crowd, "Crucify him!" Are you kidding? But somehow, especially this denial of Christ that Peter does, was one of the closest to Jesus. I would never have done that to one of my close friends. And then I began to think, do I deny Christ in other ways? Am I guilty too? Certainly you know the man. You were with him. Really? Maybe my smug attitude sometimes leads me astray. And I think about when I may have denied Christ. I worked a long time ago with a pastor who played sort of a game with strangers. He had a good friend from college, and they would often go golfing together. Being only the two of them, they would often pick up a third or a fourth to make it a foursome on the golf course. And these two friends played a game with the people that they had never met about seeing how much they could learn about the other people without disclosing anything about themselves. They thought it was pretty funny. And actually, we can do that. People like to talk about themselves. So anytime there's a question asked and someone says, well, what is it that you do? Oh, I'm not so busy that I don't have time to golf. What do you do? And people go on. And they turn the conversation all the time, trying to disclose as little about themselves. Then my colleague, who was a pastor, disclosed to me that all the time that he was living at his previous location and serving his prior parish, he had neighbors and people that he knew that never knew he was a pastor. The place where he took his dry cleaning, the people in the grocery store, the places that he frequented, the girl who cut his hair, he never, ever disclosed that he was a pastor. And he thought that was pretty cool. I thought it was a little strange. I thought about that today in the context of this, of denying Christ. Particularly for pastors, you all can sit out there and say, yeah, if I was a pastor, I would tell everybody I was a pastor. Yeah, it's not that easy sometimes. People treat you a little differently. Or they suddenly feel obligated to say that they can clean up their language around you, or that they will do some other things, or they won't do this, or they won't say that. Or especially at a party, they may just wander away, not to be in the vicinity. But I thought about it in just everyday life, not the fact that I'm a pastor or that even one of you might be. But what about the times that we all deny our faith? That we deny Christ? The times that we cheat and lie in little ways? The times that we treat others less than we should? The times that we say things that, if Jesus was standing next to you, you wouldn't say that? I bet there's 1,000,001 ways that we could list that we deny Christ. And yet smugly sometimes we read these passages and think of Peter and think, oh man, another time of the dumb disciples. And wouldn't you even think that at this point in time that they would have got it? I don't know if we would either. But at least with a perspective of a couple thousand years and hindsight being 20/20, we have the advantage to look back at these stories. We have the advantage of letting them touch our lives if we choose. We have the advantage of placing ourselves in the stories, how would we really have acted? How do we act now? Do people at your office, your work, your school, your neighborhood, do they know you come to church? Does your family? One of my first parishes, I was called by the local funeral home. They needed a pastor to do a service for somebody. And I said sure that I would. Asked the family to come and meet at my office. And we sat around together, and there were adult children, a wife that had been separated from this husband for quite a while. And we began to talk, and I asked them to tell me stories of their loved one who had died. They stumbled around for a long time, and nobody was really saying anything. And I wondered why. So I tried a few more times, and then I said, well, can you tell me why you'd asked for a pastor instead of just letting the funeral home do the service? Silence. And then one person spoke up, one daughter. She lived in Texas, so none of the family was too close. And she said, well, I'm a born-again Christian. And the family all turned and looked at her like she'd have said she'd lost her head. They didn't know. But they all agreed that somehow God needed to be involved. Maybe this week, and especially in these last couple of weeks of Lent, take a moment to think about how we may deny Christ in our life. How we may go about our daily living but shutting Jesus out of some parts of it, or not including him in some of the conversations that go on either in our head or in our life. Because I'll bet, although I'm not supposed to gamble, that every one of us denies Christ in some small and some large ways at some points in our life, probably pretty regularly. Let's ask for some forgiveness for that and courage to move ahead so that when we're caught in the courtyard and someone says, did you know him? We'd be able to stand up and say, yes, I did. I knew him well, but he knew me better. Amen. I invite you to turn to hymn number 645. Stand as you Take time now to direct a portion of our lives entrusted into our care through our child. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. I invite you to stand as you are able. An angel went from God to a town called Nazareth to a the angel said to her, rejoice, O mighty King, our God is with you. You shall bear a child, and his name shall be Jesus, a chosen one of God Most High. And Mary said, I am the servant of my God. I am to do your Great and merciful God, source and ground of all goodness and life, give to your people the peace that passes all understanding and the will to live your gospel of mercy and justice. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. God, remember us in your love and teach us to pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come, your will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us today our daily bread. Forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. Save us from the time of trial, and deliver us from evil. For the kingdom, the power, and the glory are yours, now and forever. Amen. Let us bless our God. May God Creator bless us and keep us. May Christ be our light to our lives. May the Spirit of God be our guide and path for all of our days. Go in peace, rest in God, and rise to serve. Amen.